is on day release. Demon sub tries not to crease. And Meanwhile's keeping nice and warm in bed with Russian uniform. Meanwhile, the handyman is opening another can. Technical difficulties, they're really such a crime. Technical difficulties, they happen all the time. It's Yellow Belly Tabletop time. It's Yellow Belly Tabletop time. It's Yellow Belly Tabletop time. Sometimes they're salty about the gaming biz, and nobody knows who Upworlder is. Technical difficulties, they're really such a crime. Technical difficulties, they happen all the time. It's Yellow Belly Tabletop 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 time.
Evening, guys. Welcome to another live stream. See the fucking chats already getting into the swing of things, ragging the shit out of us and winding Dave up.
Look, does this episode need a salt warning? No?
Maybe. Actually, less likely to than
Actually,
many.
there's probably going to be less
Yeah.
salt
Yeah.
in this stream than there currently is on British roads. Because it's fucking Baltic outside.
Yeah, true. That is very true. So, good evening to everybody. We hope you had a good week. Let's start the proceedings off with our usual shout out to whoever's in chat. So we've got Cheese Me, hello sir. We got Crispin, he was in early. Mr. Because of Ben. We've got Pandy of that's Paul from Pandy Man Entertainment. Check out their game Trench Offensive on the internet and on a tabletop near you, and Threat Level 0, which I think is another miniatures game that they do. Hello Darren, Demon Sub on Instagram. Check him out on there to see some great painting. And some really unusual models. Really paint stuff out of left field. Hello to Upworlder, Trevor. Hello to Spam, who is David's other half for the those new to the show. Yeah, hello to everybody. Good to have you with us. We hope those of you who are resident in the UK are surviving the grim weather, because it's pretty fucking cold here at the moment.
What's the forecast for tonight? Down to -15 up in Yorkshire, isn't it?
Yeah, sort of. Essentially, think of the antithetical opposite to Los Angeles right now, and that's sort of where we are.
Is that too soon? Too soon?
Yeah, commiserations and thoughts and prayers if you live in that area of California that's currently plagued by insane wildfires. Yeah, God, God, thank God it's not a problem we've got to deal with. Salt on, ice on the roads rather, is more what we're coping with right now. So yeah. Good evening. Now then, let's.
It's been a week.
It has.
It's been a hot week.
It has been a week. So everything's going okay with the New Year's resolutions, I think, so far. We haven't managed to buy any miniature games in the last week.
But more on that in the news later.
David's having a crisis. David's having a crisis. So if you're new here, welcome to the show. Over the next couple of hours, we're going to be following our normal format. So we will show you what we're going to be working on tonight, because after all, this is a hobby live stream. So this is where you need to spend 2 hours of your evening getting some work done.
Is it?
Yeah, apparently. So we'll do that. Then we'll chat about briefly what we got up to our gaming club, because we actually do some gaming as well. Look at this, the all-round fucking package we are, mate.
I'll just be careful using those words in that particular order.
Chat's getting away. Let me finish telling you what we're going to be doing before I get distracted by the fucking shiny that is chat. Then we will. Well, I don't know what we're going to do to kill an hour till about 9 o'clock when the main theme is due, because frankly, there's been fuck all going on in the gaming industry from my point of view. I haven't found. There's not really been much to watch on YouTube, which is fantastic because I've been playing ton of Farming Simulator, but it's a bit crap when it comes to trying to pad out the show. Then at 9 o'clock, we're going to get into our main topic.
We could do our recommendations on what maps not to pick for FS22.
Yeah. Then at 9 o'clock, we'll get into the main topic where we're going to discuss whether more miniatures is more fun. We'll leave it at that.
No, you phrased it completely wrong.
Oh.
It's does size matter?
No, we've done that. We did that when we talked about scale, miniature scale with bloody Tim.
Well, we're going to do it again in a different way, because that is tip-worthy there.
So, let's have a quick look into the chat. So, what did Crispin say?
Crispin, you're one to talk.
Crispin,
your Billion Sun Games are 7 foot long.
I was gonna.
That's the size of your fucking ships.
I was gonna say, what did Crispin say? And then he said, I've scrolled up and realised he said he started wanking more. So that's his New Year's resolution. Really didn't think I wanted to know that. But thanks anyway for sharing, Crispin. Darren's selling miniatures. Do you know what? I was talking to Shakos and Sprues, James. We had a little bit of a Farming Simulator session on Sunday night, and he was talking about thinning his collection and selling stuff. Do you know what? I do admire the discipline of you guys that can actually get rid of, shall we say, unwanted or basically unloved collections. I really wish I could.
That's a dirty word, isn't it?
Yeah.
In our parts.
I think. Do you know what? I really wish that I had the sort of strength to sort of say, I'm not keeping that. I haven't used it for a decade. I'm not going to use it in the next fucking decade, and get rid of it. So yeah, kudos to you, Darren. Crispin's still on about his self-abuse. Evening, Toros. You enjoy your dinner, sir? I had my pie and chips, and I'm now washing it down with a Pepsi Max. David wants to know what you're eating in some sort of weird culinary voyeuristic fashion.
Well, I had meatballs and chips for tea. It was a little bit beige.
Crispin's going to go to Japan for the Wank Championships.
Oh my
God. God's sake.
Anyway, before Crispin derails us, we've got things to get on with. So shall we talk about what we are working on tonight and what we did at Club Boyo?
Yeah, do you want to go first? I've actually got your desktop cam.
Yeah, let's go.
Ready, go. Go on then. What are you working on?
So I have just based my Moonstone miniatures. Literally just based, hence why they're wet as fuck. with my own homemade basing mix, so that's now all on them, and we're waiting for it to dry and harden off.
Crispin says, Paul, are you into big MMORPG? No, absolutely not, Crispin. That's an area of gaming. That's an area of gaming I've never got into, mate. Sorry. Evening, James.
The next thing I'm working on.
Yes. Apparently, Taurus is having pasta and pesto. Do you know what? I've not had that for ages.
Oh,
Taurus.
pesto
I do
pasta.
like pasta.
Awesome,
pesto.
dude. My lad loves that.
I'm assuming you do like MMORPGs, Crispin.
And then
feel free to shout out your favourite in the chat.
Building pup containers from the lovely TT Combat.
So actually, the multi-award winning Moonstone basing thing that's not what
Done.
you're really doing. That's done.
It's done. I'm waiting for it to dry.
And you're back on now.
Back on terrain.
Is that a TT Combat kit or is that
It's
one
TT
from UK?
kit.
Okay, what are you building there then? Is this
a
sci-fi?
A pup container. So it's a sci-fi container, and there's 2 or 3 in the set, and they come in at about this size. Okay.
Well, you'll be able to give us little updates on your progress as you go. Darren had southern fried chicken. Spam says, David, we need to go to Japan.
Do we now?
Oh my God.
Oh, actually, just before you dive away,
yes,
I've also printed all of the left-hand versions of some of the miniatures that I was missing for my rank and flank dwarves.
So this is your dwarf
I took
army.
them into the mirror and flipped them into the slicer.
Okay, just to give yourself some more pose variety.
Yeah, so
easy trick. Nice job.
Yeah. So I get more miniatures for less money.
I wonder if people notice that all the runes are mirrored and are therefore wrong.
Oh, that is possibly sacrilegious. So I possibly fucked up a little bit there.
When David posts pictures of his fucking army on Instagram or here, then feel free to sort of roast him. Say, aren't those runes backwards, actually?
Actually, it's the Japanese cohort of dwarves because they're reading right to left.
Oh, God.
Fucking told you. There we go. Right, what are you working on, dickhead?
So what am I doing? I'm back on the Batman bandwagon.
Back on Batman, eh?
I am absolutely fecking determined to get the miniatures finished for the first of the Gotham City Chronicles scenarios. So I did start these on a live stream, I think a week or 2 ago before Christmas. So we've got four miniatures, all the same. Guys with a sort of some thug with a crowbar. There's these miniatures are really easy to paint. There's basically only 4 colours. We got the jacket, trousers, beanie hat, flesh, crowbar, boots. Bish bash bosh. Should be able to get these out. Yeah, I know, Shakos. This Gotham City Chronicles game has been one of these things that's been sitting in my pile of shame since I backed the Kickstarter fucking years ago, and I've still not put it on the table in anger, and god damn it, 2025 will fix this, because the game looks so damn good. You know, as board games go, it just looks amazing. With resource management and special abilities and miniatures and fucking... There's some... For those of you who are interested in the Gotham City Chronicles board game, what it's all about, what it involves, there are some videos on the on Tabletop, Beasts of War, whatever you want to call it, website. So they did some playthroughs, I think, of the first scenario, which is where you got to defuse bombs. And I think they did a couple of videos, because there's a versus mode where you can fight villains versus like the Bat heroes, Bat family, direct head-to-head, and I'm sure I saw a video that had Justin and some of the other guys playing that mode, so I'm sure that is on there. So yeah,
Are
that's
you sure
what.
you didn't imagine it?
No, fairly sure I didn't. I do imagine lots of disturbing and weird shit, but I'm fairly sure I didn't imagine that. So that's what we're going to be working on tonight. Feel free to shout out in the chat if you're doing any painting, hobby, whatever, building, painting. Let us know what you're up to, and if you're watching us later on YouTube, stick it in the comments below. Let us know what you were up to. Club. So, it was the first Monday of the month, which means two things. First of all, it was our regular club painting competition, and I use the word competition loosely. Hello, Shark. Good to see you, sir. Did Santa bring you anything nice for Christmas? I don't think we've seen you for a few weeks. You've probably been lurking. So yeah. Yeah. So not only was it our painting competition, but it was also board game week. So you did the honours with the board games this week, didn't you, mate?
I did. I bought Worms in and Imperium Classics, both of which went down really well.
Yeah, Imperium is a deck building card game. For those of you who don't know, by Osprey, isn't it?
Yes, it is by Osprey.
By Osprey.
That company that makes literally everything from books to miniatures.
I'm glad it's World War II, sir. Shark doesn't disappoint. He's on the World War II. I don't know if you saw our New Year's resolutions last week, Shark, but I took an undertaking to do more with bolt action this year, and I got the Mariana and Palau Islands source book. So I'm probably going to be getting myself some American forces at some point this year. So yes, mate, you were saying we played Imperium Classic Edition. And we played the Worms board game, didn't we, from Mantic?
Can I get your answers and thoughts on a postcard about Worms? Because I don't know where you really sit on it, mate.
Me?
Yeah.
It is not a game I would ever buy. It was fun. It is real beer and pretzels stuff. Yeah. I think the way that we played it, 4-player, is probably the best way. I think the more the merrier. Just lean into the random fun of it.
Lean into the chaos.
The only bit of it that I found jarring is the fact that the miniatures do not in any way align with the cards that you play.
Yeah. Well, it could if you change them every fucking 15 seconds, and this was sort of my biggest gripe with getting it, and I have roasted it before that on that matter, haven't I?
Yeah. I mean, I'm not throwing shade. I can totally see why they went down the route of doing what they did, which is we just want to create loads of cool worm poses, but if we tie those models to their abilities in the game, it's going to be too restrictive in terms of the mechanics. So we're going to have to ask people to sort of like
suspend their
disbelief, and like, you know, when their worm with an Uzi shoots his bazooka or throws his grenade, that's just the way it goes. So I can totally see what, but at the same time, I'm sure they thought, well, we could make all of the models really generic and the same, and that's not good either, because, you know, you want to be able to show off the cool miniatures when you're doing a miniatures-based board game, don't you?
Yep.
So, I mean, what's the retail edition cost?
Now you're asking technical and in-depth questions that I don't have the answer to
Okay.
right this second. Bear with me.
Okay. Because all I would say is, it's a great
40 quid at Wayland.
40. And
for
how
the
many?
base standard.
And how many miniatures do you get in the non-Kickstarter edition?
16 worms.
Yep.
So enough for 4 people to play 4 worms.
Yep.
5 dice, 6 crates, 6 ordrums, 6 mines, maps, tiles, and tokens, 10 player reference cards, 79 weapons, 7 death and supply drop cards, and 16 coloured base rings.
Yeah. I mean, my
RRP for it is 50.
My TLDR is that's a perfectly good. It's a perfectly good board game.
Yeah.
If you want to buy, the other thing I will say, I think it could be described almost as family weight. I think you'll probably find most age groups would get something out of it.
Now it is family weight because
Okay.
I have played it with my 9-year-old.
Yeah.
And Spam.
Yeah. I think children of really any age would get something out of it because, again, you can't power game it. So much of it is so random. You know, you can't plan for anything. You just roll the dice. Oh look, my worm's been blown into the water. There we go. That's that over and done with. So from that point of view, I do think it has massive appeal. Obviously, there's all sorts of things to hang your hat on. You've got the fact that it is the Worms IP, so people of an older generation, will remember the original computer games, so they've got that massive nostalgia fix. But even if you're a younger audience, like I say, anybody can see that a worm armed with an Uzi spraying death at their enemies is going to be fun.
Pretty badass.
Yeah. So yeah, that's what I would say, mate. Not a game I think that I would buy, but I'm glad I've played it. And the other thing is, I'd happily play it again because it doesn't outstay its welcome. Do you know what I mean?
No. Again, we played a 4-player game with 2 players at the table, having never played before, and we got through it in just over an hour.
Yeah.
And we didn't start on time.
No. The only thing is, because obviously the setup was quite involved, so you might want to do a couple of games back to back. If you are going to the trouble of unpacking it all and getting it ready. But I don't think there's anything at all wrong with that. I think it's a great game in general.
Then on to Imperium, a game we both love.
Both
played new decks, both played new factions,
Yeah.
both really struggled, actually. Scores on the doors. Luke spent most of the game going, I've got no idea how I'm playing this deck. Fucking absolutely wiped the table and got basically the same score that me and Paul got combined.
Added together, yeah.
Yeah.
He essentially doubled the player in second place and absolutely smashed it. Imperium is a great little card game from Osprey, if anybody wants to give it a try.
Nice solo mode.
I can't speak to that, but you've played it, haven't you, mate?
Yes.
Yeah, so if you can play a board game solo, that always enhances its opportunities to visit it. It's got some great historical theming. Obviously, for those of you who don't know, in Imperium you effectively pick an ancient race. So I was the Scythians. You could take the Romans, the Celts,
Macedonians,
yeah.
Vikings.
And effectively, the way the game is themed, you have to do something that sort of reflects the civilization that you've got in history. So the Celts are quite a barbaric, warmongering race.
Aggressive.
Yeah, they like raiding other cultures. They're not ones for building a lot or expanding their empire. Like the Scythians that I was playing, it was very much focused on trade and acquiring goods. That's the direction that you were led down to score points. So with all of the various factions, you've got plenty of different options for modes of play. And it's, as I say, it's got that nice little historical thing. Yeah, it is hilarious, Shark.
There we go.
So Warzone Eternal, Crispin says his Kickstarter is about to ship. What was Warzone Eternal, Crispin? Board game, card game, miniatures game? I don't think I know. I'm hoping the book is going to be a good fun, Shark. This is what my resolution was. I've really enjoyed playing a campaign of Frostgrave last year, and I want to do more with bolt action. I've got an army, and I tend to just stick it on the play table and play a by the numbers mission out of the book. And I want to start doing more involved stuff, which was Warzone Eternal is a miniatures game. What 40k could have been? You have my attention. Lemmings, the board game. Yeah. The trouble is it will come with 100 minis. That's a good point. Yeah. I wonder if there's a way around that. I wonder if you could do it with cards or tokens or yeah, I'm not sure how you would do it, but it's a good idea, Darren. Lemmings the board game. Huh. So yeah, it was a good club, a good board game night. Nice to try something new, which was really why we started board game night, wasn't it, mate? To give people.
Yes, it was. I just muted myself because I was using the dentist tool.
Oh, okay. Giving people a chance to play odd little board games that they won't normally get to play during the course of their hobby. And we've managed to get some great things to the table. Arkham board game. Deep Rock Galactic, which was a cracker that Luke got from Kickstarter.
God tier.
God tier, yeah.
God tier is not a bad little game.
God tier is something we need to play in 2025. We need to get our 3 faction lists finished and play that game at the full 3 champions or whatever the hell it is level.
Yeah.
And that brings us on to the painting competition. So the theme for the painting competition this month was accept my gifts, accept my sacrifice. And as we discussed, I think last time we were on, I was inspired to paint my Christmas present from David, which was absolutely bang on the money for the painting competition theme. In fact, those of you who were here last week saw the drama of me trying to build the 2 miniatures I wanted for the painting comp being the only 2 that were like a fucking nightmare. But still, we got there. So let's see if we can show the peaks.
Yeah, it also helps when you don't drop the miniature that you're trying to build and paint on the fucking floor and then rant.
Yeah, that was a bit embarrassing. Yeah. That is very true. Shakar says it's very nice to play other people's kick-started board games as you haven't had to go through the anguish of will you get it and when. That's very true. And not only that, you also probably haven't had to spend upwards of 300 quid to get it.
Yeah, you haven't had to sell your child's kidney and spleen to
Yeah.
fund it. Because you already sold your own for the last fucking big Kickstarter that you purchased. And you're fast running out of organs.
Darren says he deliberately points out board game Kickstarters to his friend and then gets to play them at no cost. Ha ha!
Fucking
Well
genius move.
Nice one, Darren. Yeah, I'm, as I say, some people might say, what you doing, you mad fool, buying a second edition campaign book or getting it as a gift just when third editions come out. And I say to you, none of this it doesn't work like that. It's World War II. Come on, get a grip. It's fine.
The war doesn't change.
No.
War never changes. To quote
they're not retconning the Second World War for Bolt Action Third Edition. Oddly enough,
it's been cancelled. It's been cancelled because cancel culture is the thing.
So this is what I entered. So these are 2 miniatures from the Carnivale Vatican starter set, and obviously. We've got Accept My Gifts with the old altar boy there and his burning censer. And Accept My Sacrifice with, I think he's called the Deacon, bearing around his crucifix. For those of you watching last week, I'm pretty happy with the repair job I did on the Deacon's leg. Yeah, but... Do you know what? If you can't, ultimately the theatre lists in the campaign books from Warlord for Bolt Action Second Edition, the main thing to take out of the theatre lists is what you can and can't run, because obviously. So taking the one I'm most familiar with, which is the Fall of Singapore lists for Japan and Great Britain. In the Empires in Flames book, it basically just restricts you to like inexperienced British troops with no heavy equipment. You've got the odd Bren carrier, but you've got no tanks, no heavy armor. It's not. Yes, okay, you might need to run the platoon format. But just fucking restrict yourself to the troops that are in the list and build standard third edition platoons. It's not difficult.
Use it as a scenario generator.
Yeah,
for your maps.
It's like really, it's not difficult. Don't worry. Thanks very much, Shark. As I say, the thing I'm most pleased with is the repair job. You can see it on this rear shot. There's like a.
Did you take a picture of the altar boy's arse?
Yeah, I did.
Because you may be accused of noncery.
Yeah, I might accuse away. Fuck it. Yeah, so like the Deacon's. You'll see the Deacon's right leg has got a ridge in it where I couldn't get it perfectly smooth with filler. I did think about painting it as a bandage. But I got it so close to smooth, all I did was put a bit of red wash so it looks like a scar or a burn. Because actually the Deacon's face, you can't see it in this shot, but the Deacon's face has got like some scarring here on the side against the crucifix. So
it looks like he's had leprosy at some point.
So, as I say, in terms of an improvised repair job, I'm happy with it. And
I still haven't emailed them. I need to email them.
Yes, I haven't painted the bases, but bearing in mind I started painting these at 10 o'clock on Monday morning and they were ready for the painting competition at the club the same evening, I'm pretty happy with the way they turned out. And for anybody who's interested, that's base coats, washes, done. There is no shading other than that which is applied by the wash level. And there's one exception to that. The shading was a bit too severe on the white cowl for the page boy, the altar boy, so I went back in with a dry brush of the Vallejo off-white just to lift it a bit. I know it's something we bang about on about quite a bit, but one of my bugbears is, having painted miniatures for fucking 3 decades, people obsess too much about how much work it takes to get things looking reasonable. And like I said, these miniatures went from bare resin. Hello, Jeremy. I could do. Look, there is so much more I could do. You know, I could go back in and that, because that's the other thing. If I really wanted to, I could go back in and add highlights, add black lining, increase the contrast. You know, just because I've got them to here doesn't mean they're done, and it doesn't mean that further steps are hampered or made harder by where I've got them to. Do you know what I mean? As I say, I don't want to get down that fucking wormhole, but honestly, if you're relatively new to the hobby and you are racked with anxiety about your painting, don't be. Okay? Everybody starts somewhere. Just keep going, and do yourself a favour when you're watching a tutorial on the internet or whatever, and they spend 15 or 20 hours on a single 28mm miniature. If that sounds intimidating, keep searching till you find somebody who's painted it in an hour, and then see what you can achieve. Because it's just about knowledge and techniques. So, having said that, I was lucky enough to come last equal. But that's fine. I don't mind.
I'll tell you what knocked you down. Not finishing your bases.
Yeah, definitely. Jeremy Crawford says, I've found that something funny happens to miniatures by adding black lining. I'm trying to teach myself cell shading as I can. I mean, do you know what? Going back to when I was a teenager, my friend Chris Marrows, I was very late to painting. This is in the days before the internet, and essentially you had to teach yourself to paint using nothing more than word of mouth and the odd article in a magazine, mostly White Dwarf or whatever. So this is in the mid-80s. And I had massive... I really didn't do a lot of painting because I had massive anxiety about it. And my mate Chris painted a lot of my first army for 40k, which was my squats. And I have still got some of the miniatures. I've showed them off on one of our very old live streams. But Chris was an absolute expert at black lining, and he used to literally black line everything. We're not talking about a deep shade. He would black line everything. And do you know what? It gave everything, as Jeremy says, it gave everything a really characterful, cartoony look. But even now, I will not repaint or overpaint the miniatures he painted because they have such a lot of character and style. Not something I'd do myself, but unarguably, I think they look banging. Particularly as a tabletop paint job. They look great. Yeah. He was very good, and like I say, he painted my entire squat army. He painted himself Eldar, he painted himself Space Marines, he painted most of our epic stuff, he painted all of the Space Hulk we played.
Have you tried using any of the Tamiya like black panel liner pens that you can get?
I'm not going to take any credit, Shark. It's literally, obviously, with metallics, you do have to underpaint metallics. Particularly the Vallejo model colour ones. They're not good enough that you can put them over white or pale grey. I tend to use a dark brown colour under golds and bronzes and copper, and I use a black under silver and other metallics. And then it's just Agrax Earthshade over the top, just to settle into the chain links. It's really nothing complicated, mate. So yeah, I came equal fourth or equal third, technically, I guess.
Just say it as it is, mate.
Okay.
Last.
Fuck off.
Don't try and dress it up for the people at home.
Okay.
You came last. But you
So-
came ahead of me because you actually entered.
That's
So,
true.
swings and roundabouts.
Because you didn't enter. Skive. This was the winner. V at the club entered this really simple piece. I don't know if this is 3D printed or if this is actually from GW.
No, it's a shit ton from the. It's a shit ton of the schools from the school box.
Oh, is it? And he's assembled them all. Essentially, think as a trophy pile for corn. So it fits right into the theme, which is accept my gift, and accept my sacrifice both. So it wins on theme, and it was. Do you know what? I'm not taking anything away from it, but it's the kind of thing it's difficult to paint this badly. Do you know what I mean?
The dry brushing on it's really nice.
Yeah, I mean you can see you probably don't. That base is what 40 or 50 mil round, and those skulls are pretty small. But you can see you've still got clearly defined brow ridges, cheekbones, and that's just simple dry brushing. It was a worthy winner. Brilliantly executed, super simple idea. I'm not sure what the centerpiece skull is. Whether it's a
Tyrannid skull.
I thought it was Tyrannid, but I'm not sure which kit. The expert 40kers will know. This was the winner, wasn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. No, this was second.
Oh yeah.
This was second.
You're on about Tom's.
V's won. Then this was second place. This was entered by Oliver. Is it?
No, Tom.
No, Tom. Oliver's the younger lad. Tom, Oliver's brother, entered this from his Blood Angels army. Don't ask me who this is. Don't know.
Dante, isn't it?
I don't know, mate. My 40k lore is weak. I know he's a Blood Angel, but again, brilliant for the theme. Very angelic looking. Great miniature. Again, Games Workshop, fantastic miniatures, shit rule sets. What can I say? But yeah, and unlike some of the other entries, he's pretty much close to fully painted. Needs the base rim tidying up a little bit, but other than that, it was bang on the money. Great entry. And then his younger brother Oliver entered a Tau missile drone thing, whatever this is. Some attack turret. Not particularly strong on the theme, but do you know what? With our club painting competition, it's just about entry, it's about participation, and it's about getting something painted. Get something painted, and that's all it's for, really.
Did we have any online entries?
No, we didn't. I'm assuming it's because of we had Christmas and New Year, so people probably didn't have the time, but that's fine. So those were the painting competition entries from club. The theme for February's competition January's
competition that will be judged in February. Don't you start this. It's going to have fights.
I'm going to call it February's competition from now on, obviously, because that does trigger him, obviously. Is a pretty good idea of theming for New Year, I think, which is new arrivals. So, new arrivals. If you want to take part just for the fun of it, and send us a submission, then we'll conduct the actual competition judging at the club on the 3rd of February, and we'll be talking about it on the live stream on the 6th. That's Thursday, the 6th of February. So if you want to put in a submission, you can either send a picture to the email address that's listed in the video description, or you can send me a direct message on the Discord server for on Tabletop if you're part of the on Tabletop stroke Beta War community. Again, Cheese Me has to bring back the memories. Thanks, Cheese Me. yeah, okay. But I remember to take my entry this time, so you know, I don't forget every
The best
time.
thing is that month we both forgot. We both forgot that month, which was the best bit.
Oh dear. So yeah, that's it. That's painting competition. Job done. News. Well, do you want to have your existential crisis now?
No, I would not like to be attacked and have my existential crisis. I would like to sit in the corner and rock backwards and forwards.
Okay, so
and ask myself, why the fuck did I make this promise?
Yes, you should. Yes. Do you know what? That's another thing about the new arrivals topic. If anybody got given any miniatures for Christmas, a winner. They're
you blew your powder early.
Absolute sitter. Yeah, unfortunate. Now, should I enter the other 3 members of the warband? Is that cheating?
It's not cheating. Just one may question your.
I still think. My thoughts are for my entry for new arrivals. I was thinking of face huggers from Aliens because I know I've got 2 or 3 somewhere. They're a relatively low paint, low challenge paint.
Yeah.
And obviously, being recently birthed from alien eggs, I thought the new arrival thing might work for
face huggers aren't. Oh no, face huggers are burst.
Yeah, the face huggers are burst from the eggs. And obviously they don't really do miniatures for the first stage chest bursters because they're basically just little worms with teeth. You only start to get miniatures for like the more mature alien subtypes. So
that's discriminatory and ageist. Just saying. I would like to represent my alien cohorts in court for discrimination by Ridley Scott.
Well, to be fair, just make some out of some rolled fucking green stuff because they'd be about 2 millimeters long. You plank. Oh dear. So yeah, those of you who are regulars here will know that we made a New Year's resolution, didn't we, mate?
No, we didn't. It was a figment of your imagination.
And our New Year's resolution was to
I don't remember this. This is not a thing.
Our New Year.
No. If you don't repeat it, it doesn't happen.
Mate, it was recorded on the internet for everybody to see.
That video is going to go suspiciously missing. Just saying.
We made a resolution not to get into any new miniatures war games this year. So specifically miniatures war games, board games are okay. Get a pass.
Does it count as a new game though?
Because
it's from a setting we both own, and I own more of that setting than you do. Just saying.
I'll let you off if you buy the miniatures and then play Space Station Zero with the miniatures. That's the only way you get round it.
Fuck.
Because if you're not allowed to play the rule set, and what we are talking about, of course, is TT Combat's latest Drop World game.
Strike Team Commando.
So That was yeah. So David's getting a little bit excited about this, aren't you, mate? Should we scroll down? So it is not yet live on Kickstarter, but for
I love the lore. I love the sculpts for Strike Team. I love Drop Zone in general. It's a really good game. I'm really looking forward to how this plays. And if it plays more Kill Team-esque in the Drop Zone universe or that kind of thing. We will see. Watch this space, I guess.
Yeah.
Is the honest answer. But look at those mechs, boys and girls. Look at those Shaltari big boys.
I don't know. I do like the top half of the mech, and I like the almost samurai armor look of the lower half. Some things, the thighs don't seem correctly proportioned.
Yeah, but they don't seem correctly proportioned in their normal models.
Oh, okay. So they're faithful.
It is faithful to the bigger sculpts.
This
sculpts.
I think looks fucking amazing.
The Biofisser dog.
Is this a Scourge thing? What the fuck is this?
No, it's Biofissers. It's the new faction.
Oh, they've got a new faction, have they? Fuck. I do like this. Yeah.
Yeah, fighting the Scourge wasn't bad enough by being infected by parasites, so we now have guys with fucking huge energy rifles and look like they've got leprosy.
Some of
there
these...
he is on the right-hand side of the end of that painted. He's the light grey one with the red weapon.
This is the Biofissers. These are that's the Scourge guy, isn't it? The first one. And that looks like
Yeah.
Is that a Scourge heavy trooper?
You have Scourge, PHR, Shaltari, which is the Punga allies for the Shaltari.
Yeah.
Resistance.
Okay.
And then the Biofissers.
Okay.
I'm fairly sure it's Resistance. It might be UTM, but
that's like the heavy wet warrior looking thing. So what do the rest of you guys think? Are you excited for this? Biofist.
Tease me once biofisting. Can't take boys anywhere, can we? Fuck's sake.
Shut up. James says, "Oh, this looks tempting." No, it doesn't.
It looks tempting if you didn't make a pledge. Actually, I don't condone shoplifting.
Well, then don't.
But technically, it's not bought.
Oh my god. Anybody reporting David to the authorities can do so. That's funny. I'll be honest, at the moment, I'm not anxious. Because you guys who've been watching our streams for a while know that I'm the rules guy.
Yeah, you know what's going to happen, though? The rules are going to drop and you're going to go, fuck.
Just like I did with Shatterpoint, I'm going to play the demo or look at because no doubt the rules will be free because it's TT Combat. I'll look at the rules and go, oh shit, this actually looks quite good.
Yeah, you will. I'm fucking calling it now. The only thing I will say is TT, for fuck's sake, do a better job of the rule book than you ever did for fucking Carnivale. Please and thank you.
Yeah, and to be fair, that's literally, we're just saying the book. The rules are fine for Carnivale. Just pay somebody to do a decent layout on the fucking book. Don't give it to the bloody the apprentice, the office junior, to do on his break, which I think is what you did with the Carnivale book.
Twice. To add insult to injury, because you did Blood on the Water exactly the same as well. There's our dose of salt, boys and girls.
Super Sci-Fi Games. I mean, again, Shark, I mean, I don't know if you were here for last week's show, but the thing that sort of triggered David and I's New Year's resolution was when we realised that we could get to 50. We could literally play a different war game, miniature war game every week without duplicating any for a whole year, because we've got that many rule sets, collections of models, and when you realise that, and that there are so many games that we are not giving any time or attention to, Drowned Earth, come on mate, start reeling them off, Silver Bayonet, 7TV.
Hang on, because I think I fucked up. Where's it gone?
I don't know. Yeah.
No, I didn't. I didn't
We
fuck up. So
we got to 40 without even cracking a sweat, and then after a bit more brainstorming over a couple of pints in the pub, we got to over 50 easily.
That's the scary thing. The end numbers are like
shocking.
58, wasn't it?
I don't even know, mate.
Because it was 57 in the pub.
It started. Then you messaged me, didn't you? Because we'd forgotten. Was it the Zone Wars one?
Yeah. We forgot Mutant Year Zero Zone Wars, boys and girls.
Yeah. This is and this is why I mean, I don't think David and I mentioned it earlier. David and I are not in the position where we're going to go, right, what's for eBay? What's for the chop? But the least we could do is say, look, no more. Not for this year. I'm not sure, Darren, to be honest. Obviously, I suspect Jerry... No, I'm fairly confident, because do you know what's also shocking?
Hang on, was Saga on the list?
Yes. I was just about to say, what's shocking, we got to well over 50 rule sets in games, and I've only got 2 historicals on there. Bolt Action and Saga.
No, you've got 3 then.
What's the third? Flames.
4 then. Gangs of Rome.
Well, Gangs of Rome, I guess. But what I'm getting at is that we don't have any Wild West games. We don't have any medieval historicals.
Oh, no,
we don't have any fucking prehistory historicals like fucking Ancients. We don't have... do you know what I mean? I suppose Trench Offensive was on the list as well, which is World War One. But you consider that Jerry has all of the shit we've got, probably, and a fucking ton of historicals as well. Napoleonics and... I mean, Jesus Christ, I saw Jerry's got a copy of the Gates of Antares rulebook. Well, I don't have that. So I'm sure Jerry could probably get to 100 games.
Yeah, but you could have some Napoleonics if you bother to pull your finger from out your arse.
Look,
and
we're not
played some Silver Bayonet that I got you for Christmas about 3.5 years ago. Just saying.
That may
Don't
be
want to attack you publicly on stream.
That may be Napoleon adjacent, but it's not a Napoleonics, mate. Come on.
It's more Napoleonic than Stargrave.
Yes.
Am I wrong?
Yes, but quite a lot of things are more Napoleonic than Stargrave. Fucking Age of Sigmar's more Napoleonic than Stargrave. Clown.
Is it?
No,
Anyway.
spam, stop. We're not buying any games at Expo.
The only games we will be buying at Expo is probably a board game.
La la la, can't hear you. La la la. Night, Darren.
A board game at Expo is an acceptable purchase.
Yeah, board games are exempted. We're just talking about no more miniature wargame rule sets. Even though I could go out tomorrow and buy Bushido Test of Honor,
and and I want to go buy Arsenal and Hobgoblin.
And I want to buy that really cool one that we played at Expo with the Victorian Anna, Mars
Ironclad.
Ironclad. Oh, that was a great little game. But we're not doing it. We're not buying any more. I know. Yes, I know. Because I was talking to my good friend James when we were playing Farm Sim about getting into maybe not English Civil War, War of the Roses, using Hail Caesar or Black Powder, one of them.
Well, boys and girls, that's moderately satisfying. Come down to my desk cam.
Okay. They can't, mate. They're relying on me to do that, just in case you didn't know how the internet worked. Broke as heck expo. That's very good, Cheesy. We might use that as the thumbnail. More broke as heck than broke back. Oh my god, that is definitely a thing. Yeah.
Built.
Shaka says if David buys Farm Sim 25, does that count?
I've got to buy a new computer before I can buy FS25.
That looks pretty good, mate. How was that? Now, I know that you've got a sort of a love-hate relationship with these TT kits sometimes. You sit there and do have a little bit of a rant. How was that one?
Cunt. Total cunt.
Oh, shit. I had to ask.
Broke through this bottom railing because I will show you on the screw that I haven't popped out yet.
Oh, God.
How thin it goes down to. You see that nice 4 mil there for you to work with, which is the same thickness as the fucking sheet.
Oh, God's sake.
Then you have to pop these two sides in, then the base, then the two tops, then the middles. Then you have to sort of hold it all up on them while you put this backing plate in.
Hang on
but all of the detail work went on okay.
I'm just gonna season him.
The lid, I'm really happy with the lid though. It's just a little flat piece that sits on top. Just drops in nicely, he says. Just failing to get it in twice on camera for everyone at home.
I'm just seasoning you up, mate, for everybody. Yeah, so okay, well you battled on and you got it done. And it doesn't look bad, to be fair. It looks pretty good. I like the fact that you can take the roof off and play the interiors. How are you thinking it's going to be for painting?
Honestly, relatively simple because I'm just going to rattle can it with a colour forge primer, I think.
Yep.
And then I'm just going to pick out the banding and the stuff on top in a different colour.
Okay, just basically what you're going for, an industrial generic grey.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, fair comment. With those sort of terrain pieces, I suppose it depends on how deep into the weeds you get with the detail painting. That's the thing that can take the time.
Yeah, I'm not going a million miles, is the honest answer. But the honest thing is, you get 2 of these, a set of stairs.
Yeah.
For 12 quid from TT Direct. Obviously, if you buy them from a third party, they're cheaper.
Yeah, because you get like a 10 or 15% discount, wouldn't you?
Which is not terrible.
Yeah, I mean, again, we've commented on it before. I would never throw shade.
TT's pricing is good.
Yeah.
The problem is the amount of work and hours that go into fucking doing it.
And for context, the only time I really have got a bit shitty with them was when I bought the mana kit from the Dunsmouth stuff,
No, you didn't. For fuck's sake, stop it. That was War Cradle.
Oh yeah, it was, wasn't it? He hates it when I mix those up.
You're fucking senile and old.
TT, just buy War Cradle. Make my job easier.
Or War Cradle by TT.
Yeah, one or the other. It's too complicated. Why are you two companies? My old brain can't do this.
But boys and girls,
But
Chroma.
is this
Chroma Carnivale got teased, didn't it? And
Yeah.
we are both going to be poor men.
Yeah, and do you know what? Without joking aside, I'm actually I hope that TT Combat knock the Chroma thing out of the fucking park because by spending a shit ton of money on their terrain, I won't be tempted to buy any more miniature games. Because it will literally bankrupt me and take up my entire fucking hobby budget. Yeah, you did mention that the other night, James, when we were playing Farm Sim. He said that we should look at war bases, mate. They've got some fantastic MDF, although it's not pre-coloured.
No, because if this is the same war bases that made Sam's fucking paint rack.
Oh, I'd forgotten that. Oh dear.
I'm on a rant, boys and girls, bear with me.
Oh my God.
Main topic o'clock while I go researching. Yes, it's the same cunts that made Sam's paint rack.
Yes.
Sam's paint rack that's now warped beyond belief and doesn't fucking work anymore as a functional paint rack.
Do you know what? Shark, nothing. I can totally see why some people say, oh, pre-coloured is fine, but it looks a bit flat, blah, blah, blah.
Try telling that to my Flames of War table.
I am a massive fan of pre-coloured terrain and MDF because again, so many different companies are trying different approaches. My least favourite is the one where they do like a transfer print on it.
Yeah, bear in mind that's what Chroma is. Though.
Yeah, but it's my least favourite way. When they spray foreground, when they spray the sprues and colour the sprues prior to assembly, you do get the bare edges, etc. But to me, it looks better. But even transfer printing, I've got a lot of MDF terrain, and the hobby overhead of painting it and getting it table ready, I hate. It's just time I don't want to spend. Totally a me thing. I know James says Shakos and Sprues was talking about it and he doesn't find it's an issue. He's done a shit ton of like Adobe style Watland Daub, 15th century buildings for Blood and Plunder and various generic historical games. And he says that he doesn't find it hard. But for me, no. So should we get to our main topic, mate?
I suppose we ought to.
So, we've talked around this topic, but when I check back on our videos, we haven't actually directly addressed this topic. And where we were thinking of going with it, or where our headspace was at, is obviously wargaming. Classically, going back to the earliest days, most war games were quite large scale affairs with a large number of miniatures on each side. Obviously originally it was basically only historicals in the miniature wargaming sphere, back in like H.G. Wells's day, and there's that rule set that was used for training Austrian generals, whatever the hell that's called.
I can't remember.
Somebody who's a real a historical nut will know exactly which rule set I mean. And obviously these rule sets and these games, I'm going to use the word game loosely because to a certain degree, a lot of these early systems oscillated between game or true simulation a stroke training tool for, in terms of military theory. But they sort of, when they started to bleed out into, shall we say, less specialist circles and into the general populace, they were quite large scale affairs.
Yes.
And that was sort of the rule for a long time, wasn't it? If you think of
smallest like modern style game that I can probably think of is probably Mordheim. In the 90s.
What you meaning? One of the earliest small scale skirmish warband games.
Yeah, warband games.
I think you that's possibly arguable. I'm not sure what.
It may be earlier, but
there may have been really niche and specialist sort of like underground rule sets. Kriegspiel, thank you, James. There may have been less, fame. I think Blaster was an early rule set for sci-fi skirmish war games because Blaster inspired 40k to some degree, I believe, having watched a Rick Priestley interview. And that was an old sort of like fan distributed one. But I mean, if you look at, let's take the behemoth of the wargaming industry as it is now, Games Workshop. You look at their early offerings, games like 40k, they very quickly moved to a place where they wanted you to put 50 or 60 miniatures on the table. They had the Warhammer Fantasy Battles with its large ranked up units. Again, you were looking at armies of 200-ish miniatures, infantry, specialists, cavalry, war machines, and things have very much moved. They've very much pivoted. I think I'm not wrong in saying that far more of the new games to market now have a much smaller model count. 10 to 20 miniatures is far more common.
multi-award winning Moonstone. Let's go with 6, boys.
Yeah, exact. That was going to be my exact point. One of the most lauded miniature wargame rule sets and miniature ranges in modern times, the last couple of years, is tiny by comparison. 6 miniatures aside. And David and I were thinking about, first of all, let's get our prejudice out there. David and I think, well, let me go for me, then you can say your piece, mate. I prefer smaller miniature count games. I have huge Warhammer 40k collection with my Necrons. I have big fantasy battle armies, but 80% at least of the war games I play now are 3x3, 4x4, small tables, 10 to 20 miniatures. Pretty much the only 28mm large scale army game I play with any well, the only two large scale war games I played in the entirety of last year was Warhammer Fantasy Battles 8th edition and
Old World.
and Old World as well, but Bolt Action. So we played Bolt Action.
You played Drop Zone last year, didn't you?
Did we play it? I don't think we played at the full points though, because there were three of us, and we only played at, what is it, supposed to be 1500, 1750, and we only played at 1000. So even that game wasn't full size in bunny ears. I didn't play a full size Game of Kings of War last year, Cheese Me. I didn't. It is my favourite large-scale fantasy game, but I didn't play one last year. The only Kings I played last year was a couple of test games with David to see whether he liked the rule set. And that was tiny points, 750, 1000, if that.
Yeah, something like that.
I didn't play a full-size Kings of War game last year, and that's because my fantasy co-pilot, who likes those sort of games, is V, and he very much likes Games Workshop. So, yeah. As I say, my bolt action Japanese must be 50 infantry, Chiha, mortar, machine gun, mountain gun. Maybe it's 40 infantry in those, but it's still
it's a chunk of.
It's a full 1,000-point list with nothing elite, nothing veteran, everything's regular. So we're spamming out the units and not taking a lot of elite stuff. So I just prefer smaller scale miniature games. Burrows and Badgers was shouted out. Malifaux. What else? Frostgrave. Infinity. These are the games that I prefer to play now.
Where did my knife disappear?
Actually, I'm lying. I played Firefight 2 or 3 times last year, which is like Mantic's 40k equivalent. And we did play that at the full 1,000 points, 1,500 points. So we did play full games of Firefight. What about you, mate? Do you have a preference or a bias before we get into this?
I'm leaning way more into skirmish. I tried Firefight with Ricky last year, but it's just not my bag. I would, for a variety of reasons, I just seem to have got into a groove with little skirmish games, and I'm enjoying it. So I sort of stick to it. I think also as well, it leans more into my 3D printing. Because it allows me to go and sample from 20, 30 different suppliers, miniatures and the games, etc., rather than being beholden to just the one bigger game.
And you said to me when we were preparing for this show, obviously one of the projects that you've sort of planned for yourself is a large-scale dwarf fantasy army, whether that ends up being pitched for Oathmark or
Kings of War
or whatever. And you said to me that you were quite intimidated.
I'm fucking dreading it.
Okay, it's as bad as that.
I don't have a finished 40k army.
Okay.
I've got to about 1,000 points and gone, yeah, fuck it. Because, and we'll come to it more in a minute on the bigger style of stuff, but I just don't get the playtime out of it, so therefore why the fuck am I bothering?
Okay.
Whereas a skirmish game, I can get a full skirmish game in, and we're golden. Do you know what I mean? I've played a full game, played a full experience, but on the flip side of that, I do still play some large scale games in the number of miniatures on the table, and the main one that sort of strikes me here is Drop Zone.
Yep.
Because it is very fleet and command level.
Yeah, but how many miniatures do you have on the table when you play Drop Zone?
I've played with 1,000 points of PHR and 1,000 points of UCM. And
but how many miniatures is that? I'm betting it's 30, if that.
No, it's not. It's more than that.
Is it?
The UCM on its own is, I want to say, 20. and the
Okay.
PHR I've got more of because I've got more troops.
Okay.
For the
I suppose, yeah,
PHR.
you do have the individual troop bases in the sort of infantry sections. So
yeah,
Night Cheese me. Greg Gasland's Armada. See, there's another 2 games which are on the small scale that we both absolutely love. Will do, Trevor. Cheer Shark says, I admit having a very small miniature force can be attractive, say under 20, but having a company sized force provides more flexibility and variety in what's going on in the battlefield. Do you know what? That's a great little segue, Shark, to get into the meat of the discussion.
topic.
So David and I immediately then said, well, okay, what things, bearing in mind that it seems to be falling out of favour, what are people missing out on? What are the things that you can only do in these large scale games? And what are we all potentially missing out on because of the way that the
Developers are going.
the games industry is going? Because I do think it's unarguable that a lot of stuff is drifting that way to the smaller games. So, and you've sort of hit the nail on the head with one of them, Shark, which is that sense of scale. You know, that sense of producing something epic.
The grand strategy of it.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? The grand strategy of having a entire company and being able to do stuff with it versus 10 miniatures.
Yeah. And I think the S word that we touched upon earlier, simulation, particularly as it pertains to historical games, is really relevant here. Taking Bolt Action as an example, we talked about there's a World War II skirmish level game called 0200, which is supposed to embody small groups
resistance activations and commando raids and stuff like that, isn't it?
So small groups of highly elite, or as David says, sort of like informal forces breaking into facilities to do objectives, whether that's sabotage or rescue or that sort of thing. And ultimately, if you were to take Bolt Action as a premise and take 20 miniatures and play a game of Bolt Action, I'm willing to bet
your experience is not going to be anywhere near as good.
Yeah, that you are not going to feel like you are recreating a story from World War II. You might have a good game, and it might work, but I think there would be some immersion that's lost by doing something like that on a very reduced scale.
Again, it comes to what I've just sort of said about drop zone. If you just took a couple of units, you do not get the command and control style denial, area denial with your AA and bits and pieces like that you do if you take a full cohort. Do you know what I mean? A full size game. The game doesn't play the same.
No, that moves on to another topic. Do you have anything before we move on to that? Do you have anything to remark on, like the immersion or the way that the scale of the game actually feel? So Toros says it's all about the rule set. For me, it's nothing to do with the size of the figures and everything to do with the table. Okay, no, I will give you that, Toros. I don't think we're not saying that. we're not saying the figures
I
matter.
No, because again, the reason we're saying the figures don't matter is because take Flames. Flames is sized down to 15 millimeters to actually make a representative experience on a 6x4 table for company level tank maneuvering in World War II, etc.
Yeah,
that's fine. You have the flip opposite of a game, Achtung Panzer, where you're playing as individual tanks.
Yeah.
Individual tanks of Germans versus Americans, and you've got, say, probably 3 to 5 tanks on the table. It's the fact that Flames is trying to simulate being a command level game, and the rules lean into it and help it.
Yeah.
But you could equally play with your Flames tanks 28mm bolt action tank battles and stuff like that. What we're saying is it's more the spectacle of the game and it being what it is and more models from that point of view than a small company level individual platoon game with 5 bases. That's where we're trying to lean with this discussion, isn't it, Paul?
Well, I think that's what we're trying to say. And another example that I would give that we mentioned the other night, when we were at Diceni in Norwich, there were some guys there. I can't remember the rule set they were using. Somebody will probably shout it out in the chat. But they were doing a recreation of the Battle of, I think it's Mons Grappius, when the Romans were effectively stalled in their northern march by the Scots. And they sort of like that was as far north as they got. And they were playing that with 2mm wargame pieces. Now, if nobody's ever seen a 2mm wargame unit, effectively it's like a square with a series of bumps on it. I mean, it's literally like somebody's got like tiny beads and glued them to a flat piece of MDF or plastic. I mean, miniatures game is a stretch, but the fact that they had loads of these things arrayed out, and the fact, I don't know what that electrical noise is. Are you using something, mate?
No, I'm not.
Okay, there's some weird electrical noise coming in. I don't know where that's coming from or what it is, but I do apologise if everybody can hear it. The thing is, wow, hang on a minute, what the hell is that?
I know what it is. My speaker's really picking up on my fan tonight, apparently.
Ah, yes.
On my PC.
Yeah.
Because I just muted myself and did it kill it out?
Yes, it did. Yeah, it did. Spam's got the microwave on. Yeah, I mean, the rule set that they were using was so simplistic as well. It was like you could easily have taken those bases, put 28mm figures in for Romans and Celts, probably just rolled the same dice and done the same thing, but it wouldn't have felt the same. You know, the mechanics did have a part to play, but simply the visual representation was a huge part of it, is what I would recommend.
Yeah, the fact that it spanned the table and it felt like you were playing a full army.
Toros Aussie regular and Oddzilla are 2mm individual figures. Nice. So some people are psychotic enough to do that.
Why would you do that to yourself?
Spam's in the bath in a different postcode. Fucking hell. So while I know what you're saying, Toros, the rules are not irrelevant. I think in terms of creating a feeling of immersion and a feeling of what's, you know, of what the game's trying to do, miniature count and table presence are a huge part of that. And
again, you couldn't imagine. Here's the thing: you couldn't imagine Frostgrave, the narrative game that it is, being what's it called? 60 miniatures ranked up across the table, even if they were on rank and flank basis to make your life easier for playing.
No,
it just doesn't fit or vibe with the setting. And whilst that is part of it, it's not the be all and end all.
It wouldn't be the same game. It would create a completely different game.
Yeah.
And I mean, another thing that might be argued is, oh, well, what you're actually talking about is the spectacle of it. And I would push back on that, because it's not just about the visual spectacle per se. Because like I said to David, you take a beautiful Carnivale table, so you've got huge amounts of, or even infinity, you've got a very three-dimensional table crowded with terrain, tight little avenues and corners, miniatures that are moving over rooftops and, you know, skimming down alleyways, jumping across canals, you know, skipping from boat to shore to boat again. I think those sort of tables create a visual spectacle in just the same way that, I don't know, 500 Napoleonic miniatures at 20 mil ranked up create. But it's they create a visual spectacle, sure, but they don't create a sense of epic scale in the game that you're playing. Do you think that's fair?
Yeah, I think what you've just said there is completely fair. I think there is something to be said about, yes, it could be a very beautiful Frostgrave table, Carnivale table, Warhammer Old World table, etc., depending on how it is.
I mean, Christ, go, why did,
table.
Let's
But
go.
as you say, the skills and the tactical play, and again, I think this is something that feeds into it. When everybody is solo, you have way more options open to you as a commander, so there is choice and stuff there.
You mean in terms of individual miniatures?
In terms of individual miniatures and what you can do, take Infinity as an example.
Yeah.
One miniature can do basically your entire scenario for you if it falls right.
Yeah.
With a big scale game, an army or platoon level game with multiple companies, you can forgo having a weaker flank, or so it gives you more tactical options. Again, you know that you've got a fight coming in on your left flank. You've got to start moving assets across the table.
Yeah, well,
and what assets you're moving and selecting to do that comes in massively. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think this is where Toros's argument becomes a lot stronger, and we're touching on what you mentioned earlier, which is the other thing that you cannot reproduce in small skirmish level miniature games is that larger scale games, depending on how the rule set's written, I mean, I'll be honest, one of my first comments on this would be, this is what makes 40k such a weak game, is that, like you've said with Drop Zone Commander, it is and again, Hail Caesar was mentioned earlier. Hail Caesar is a command and control game, okay? Different things are important to execute your plan. You're not necessarily worrying about how many sixes did you throw in that fight, how many wounds or how much damage did you put on that unit, because if you didn't necessarily win that one little engagement on the left flank decisively, as long as you've got all of your other bits in place on the table, you could still hold a strong position and be winning the game. And again, depending on the rule set, this style of game, or this aspect of wargaming, is not reproducible with individual figures when you've got, small forces. It just does not translate. And even the most capable rules writer, I don't think what is the most movement-based skirmish game you can think of, where movement and placing of the miniatures is more important than anything else?
How do you mean? Just for area control? Or
For
in relation
anything.
to attacking and everything else?
Well, let's not put any restrictions on it. I've got one in my head, thinking of games that we play that are very small scale, maybe less than 6 models aside. There is one game I can think of where the positional play is so important in the execution of your plan. But mostly, although it's not irrelevant, it isn't by any stretch as important as other things, such as target selection, use of special powers, resource management.
Staying alive.
What would be your... Because, I mean, again, we've talked about it before. The one thing that sets rank and flank games with big blocked units apart from other types of war games is... I'm just looking at James's answer. Apart from other war games, is that positioning your units... I've often said Warhammer Fantasy Battle, to me, if somebody asked me to describe what is Warhammer Fantasy Battle, Warhammer Fantasy Battle is 2 turns of manoeuvring and almost like a Mexican standoff until you strike, and you want to strike in such a way that you collapse your opponent and pretty much win, or you achieve your end game very quickly.
Yeah, you want to strike and rout. You don't want to be drawn into a prolonged combat, do you?
No, you don't, and that is part of the game. That is what the game is about. It isn't our 2 units bump into each other and then smash at each other for 4 turns until somebody eventually wins. I mean, that can happen, but that is not what you're looking to achieve when you play fantasy battles. And if you get bogged down in that, you would say I failed. James says, unless you play dwarves, in which case that's your whole strategy. Yeah, that's true. That is very true. But yeah, so come back to answer the question. What would you say out of the small scale games we've played? Is there any one that you can think of?
Carnivale?
I would say no. Again, I'm not saying positioning is irrelevant, but I think, for example...
No, and I'm going to hard counter you with this.
Yeah.
I think positioning in Carnivale is fucking huge, and the reason I say it's fucking huge, it builds into the synergy of your lists.
Yes.
And what you can actually do and what you can actually control. It builds into your objective control, and it builds into what you're giving your opponent or exposing throughout the game.
But don't most models have the ability to reposition relatively quickly in Carnivale? Most models.
No, I wouldn't say
you
so.
Wouldn't.
My doctors are slow.
Yeah,
my patricians are slow. Don't forget, you've been playing fast as fuck Strigoi.
Yeah.
You care not about elevation.
Yeah, Okay, I still think a stronger contender is Armada, because your position determines the initiative order, your position determines your firing arcs, your position determines your sort of like your whole placing during the turn, because movement is highly restricted. You see, the thing with Carnivale is all models can move 360, pretty much unrestricted. And when you've got a game where miniatures can do that, I think that you can't say movement. I would say even Gaslands is more restricted in terms of its movement. Admittedly, I can be argued against, and I take your point. And I'm not saying that it's irrelevant. I mean, positioning's not irrelevant in 40k, but I still don't think it's a movement-based game. Do you see my point? And what was interesting was that, of course, James said Black Seas. If everybody looks up in the chat, which is, of course, the game that Armada was derived from. So him and I are on the same wavelength. But aside from that, I think that small conversation is a very good representation. You must eat a lot of beans if you're physically moved by. That small conversation about just one aspect of wargaming, I think, represents a good example of the principle that David and I are talking about. Another great one is what David talked about earlier with Drop Zone Commander. I mean, again, Drop Zone Commander is a movement-based game. You have your flyers.
Yeah, it's about denying your opponent a landing an LZ with your anti-air and getting it dropped in early enough that it can be efficient.
Yep. And in that game, your land assets, your tanks, your heavy artillery, they are bad at redeploying. So that's what you have to do with your air support. Your air support needs to pick them up and put them where they need to be. It's designed into the rules.
Yeah.
Carnivale is an absolutely fantastic game, Shark.
Again, your troops in Drop Zone Commander, for God's sake, don't ever let them get caught out in the open with their cocks out, because they can only move 2 inches and there'll be 3 turns crossing a fucking street and not getting shot at. But they're amazing for fast roping into a building, breaking out an objective and pulling it out to give it to a heavily armored unit. Yeah.
So, and again, you can't reproduce those aspects of the game or of combat, if you want to put it that way. You can't reproduce that with individual miniatures in a skirmish style setting, I would argue. Trevor mentioned,
not easily.
Upworld mentioned Malifaux positioning is very important, and in some respects he's right. Malifaux is an extremely fiddly game where miniatures being out of position by 1/4 of an inch means that you're not scoring on objective, or you can't get your special ability off, or you're just out of that unit's range. But the game, you know, the models don't have restrictions on their movement. Most models move relatively freely, 360 degrees. It's not a game with a great deal of verticality. You don't see a lot of flying. So although it's important, it comes back to what I was saying. I don't think you could say it's up there as one of the most important. You will lose games of Armada if you can't move your ships correctly. I don't care if you build a top tier broken list. If you constantly end up out of position...
Why do I feel attacked by you referencing my dreadnought there?
No, but I wasn't actually trying to do that. But I think you would agree, wouldn't you, mate? If you don't master the movement aspect of that game, you won't win.
Yeah, if you are sat there dawdling, you've
Yeah.
got no hope.
Yeah.
You need to, and again, this is the thing, because and I think this is what links in with what you're saying, because the wind works so intrinsically with the game and the rules set, it is far more position focused than if it was just, fuck it, every turn. And again, this is the thing, because the wind direction changes and it can change on the fly throughout the game. It's not a case of, every turn it's left to right, left to right, left to right.
Yeah. And the fact that it
No, but Trevor, dwarves and steam engines, dwarves are broken because they have steam engines and can do all the turn shenanigans. Because it's like, I'm going to position to have a crash next turn because I don't give a flying fuck about it because I'm going to steer away. But if I had no concept of the steering and the movement and the activations, I wouldn't be doing that.
Not only that, I think if you were a dwarf player, I don't care how resilient your ships are, I don't care how much damage output they've got, if you constantly either run them aground or place them where they can't attack anything, your opponent's probably going to beat you on the objective. Do you know what I mean? And as I say, that is not true of a lot of war games. I mean, one of the things that annoys me about 40k is 40k can essentially be broken down into a damage output. Okay, all that you need to do is use the right weapon against the right target, deal out the maximum amount of damage possible, and clear your opponent off the table as quickly as possible. And the game's rules facilitate that mode of play brilliantly. And for me, but the problem is, it depends on your collection. Because if you bring the wrong gun to the fight, you've got no chance. You can't outmaneuver your opponent. You can't outgame your opponent. You can't hide from your opponent. If you can't outgun them, you've lost. And for me, that gives far too shallow a gaming experience for me to enjoy 40k. So basically, I think that those, and feel free, get in the comments and call us liars, but I would say that unfortunately is it. I don't think that there are really any other things that you can say, well, this only, this large scale game does this, and there isn't a small scale skirmish game that does this as well. The two things that we've talked about, which is certain aspects of warfare that really do need to be supported by rules and mechanics. They don't happen, again, looking at you 40k, you can't, those sort of things do not happen just because you've got 100 miniatures on the table. They only happen when they're supported by rules and mechanics in your system that facilitates that sort of thing. And the immersion or the feeling of reproducing a particular, it's a difficult thing to put into words, I don't know what I'm trying to say, to reproduce a particular feeling. I think, I hope as well, Toros, that Warpath...
Give me 2 seconds and I'll dive in on this conversation. I've just got a couple more bits to finish.
I hope, like you, that Warpath does the drop zone thing and actually justifies itself as a rule set. What I don't want is Firefight where I play with smaller miniatures. I want a different game. I want something else. Because again, I haven't played
I know where you were trying to go with what you were trying to say, mate. It's that feeling of being a general. It's that feeling of commanding the army and the rules leaning into it and helping. And I think this is the other thing, not necessarily related to miniatures games, but related to like computer games and the real-time strategy genre and Command and Conquer and stuff that was around in the 90s. Having 500, 1,000 units and being able to go, well, we're going to war, and push that button and just swarm up and create a front. The closest we can get at the tabletop level is having like 200 miniatures, 300 miniatures, depending upon the scale of the game, etc., and what scale you're playing at in the millimeter sense, not as in the war game sense that we're using here.
Yeah, as in the size of the collection of models.
The size of the miniatures, etc. If you're playing at 28 mil, you've got to make some compromises and have a slightly smaller setup than if you were playing at 6 mil.
Well, the other thing as well is I think you also have, or you need to compromise on your table. We've, from experience, I tried to squeeze bolt action onto a 4x4, and the game suffers when you do this. If you to 28mm games that you want to play big, and by that we mean big armies, you need to give yourself table space to maneuver those assets, use those rules.
Where again, we've fallen into the trap of it of trying to play Flames on a 4x4.
Yeah,
it doesn't work.
No, doesn't work. Drop Zone Commander just about, but I think it's well designed.
We've not been playing at full points though.
No, I was actually conscious of that. I wonder if we'd find the same would happen with Drop Zone. I did think that.
I tell you, boys and girls, can I just make a civil recommendation for people that are getting into MDF building? Go buy yourself one of these. It's a fucking godsend. Little Dremel multi-tool. I've just sanded the entire building in like 15 minutes while I was muted and dropping in and out.
Got you. That's what the noise was. Again, Taros, that's a brilliant way of expressing it. Christ, I wish I'd thought of it myself. With the beauty of large-scale war games, you can reduce the interaction of the units, but still preserve a sense of there being a game. You know, and this is where, because again, movement matters more, positioning matters, placement, angles of attack. Yeah, that is a really good way of putting. A really good way of putting it. I mean, Shark mentioned earlier about different types of units. So you might have support units and command units and frontline heavy combat units and that sort of thing. I don't think that's unique to the large scale games, because effectively, let's say you've got an Infinity army of 15 models, 10 orders and 5 orders broken across 2 combat groups.
2 fire teams.
In that, you will have command units. You might have support units like hackers or forward observers. You might have heavy combat battle suits, tags. So you can get the variety of arms. What's the phrase I'm looking for, mate?
Special weapons count.
Yeah. I was thinking more general in military.
You can get combined arms.
That's it.
Of a game.
That's it. Combined arms was the phrase I was looking for. Thank you. Yes. So even in individual miniature games, you can fake the combined arms thing by creating weird and wacky rules. Because obviously in real life, you don't get a fucking 10-man unit that looks like the ABC Warriors and everybody is super unique. Do you know what I mean? Oh yeah, we've got the 10-foot tall battle suit and we've got the bloke the size of a goblin with like ninja skills. Doesn't happen in real life, but in tabletop war games you can do that. So you can reproduce your scouting and your heavy support, but in individual miniatures in a way.
Yes.
So I don't think that large scale gaming can wear that coat. Do you know what I mean? I mean, not exclusively.
I'll tell you what, it wears it better.
It does.
What you've just discussed there is 3 kobolds in a trench coat.
Yeah.
Versus the combined arms style in a larger scale format game where you have units of multiple men doing a very specific task and job.
Yeah. It comes across more convincingly in large scale games, but I still think small scale games can eat a bit of their dinner. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. That's why I'm sort of saying it's 3 kobolds in a trench coat.
Yeah.
It's close enough. On first pass, it passes the inspection.
Yep.
But when you look closer at it, actually, it leaves a little to be desired.
Yeah, it's a little bit forced, but it's still there. So, just bearing in mind what we've said, guys, would you come up with a third? We've got 5 minutes left. Has anybody in chat got the absolute fucking hot mad take? You've missed this.
We've missed all night.
Yeah. This is something that you will never reproduce in Infinity, Burrows and Badgers. You can only do it when you've got 100 miniatures per side and blah, blah, blah. Call us out. And if you're watching later on YouTube, that's what I want to see in the comments. Call us out. Because no, Trevor, you can't. We're talking very specifically about miniature war games played at different points, levels, and scales, or whatever. I'm not talking about, board games.
Again, if we're gonna do that, we'll just tag Voidfall in, and the fact that it gives you a migraine because it's so big.
Not only that. Once you start including board games, you get into the weeds of the really nerdy strategic fucking
the
board games,
like diplomacy and shit like that.
Well, yeah, the ones where it's like buckets of counters. Like there must be loads of different versions of Waterloo that you play on a board game, and it's like you're moving entire fucking regiments about and doing command and control and resource management on paper and stuff like that. We don't really want to drag that in because it's like it's a whole thing. We want to sort of like stick to the if you get 10,000 naps out, you're going to get a full weekend of the game. That's pretty unique. What? I don't even get that, James. What do you if you get 10,000 naps out, you're going to get a full weekend of the game. That's pretty unique.
I've done the legs now.
He's got legs. It's got legs.
It's not bad for basically an hour's work tonight.
What's really impressive is that the Dremel isn't sticking through the top of it. Oh, I see. Right, yeah. So if you get 10,000 Napoleonics out, you're going to get a full weekend of the game. That's pretty. Yeah. Okay, yeah. Yeah, okay, Taros. Yeah. Again.
I'm going to argue that. I'm going to argue with Taros there, though. I'm going to argue with Taros.
No, you can't. You can't because it's totally subjective. It's totally subjective.
No. Find me a 3 foot by 3 foot Carnivale table that's absolutely last out with terrain, etc.
And it's got all these scatter pieces, the market stalls.
It's got 150 ducats worth of miniatures on it, and tell me that doesn't look cool.
Yeah, Taros wins. Yeah, I mean, subjective aside, obviously we've all got, and do you know what? In a way, I do sort of agree with Toros. I can remember the first time I played Warhammer Fantasy VIII after a huge hiatus against V, and I got to put all of my orcs out, the fucking huge blocks of 40 guys, with like 60. Well, I think there was 2 units of 30 Night Goblin archers, 40 orcs with 2 hand weapons, then all of the ranged support stuff behind them, a boar boys on the flank, and you put that out, and you just think that looks fucking cool.
Well, again, it's like just going down into the under the table.
Yeah,
I've got probably about a third of an army there.
Yeah, it is a very different thing, Shark, which is why I think we need to sort of exclude it from the argument.
Group.
Toro says, but V, Booty V, what? I'm too old for you kids and your fucking abbreviations. No, naps. We've learned something new. Naps equals Napoleonics. Oh, I meant to ask James, how's the NARM 68 going? Have you made any progress since we gamed at the weekend? Have you had a fruitful week? Ooh, that's a fair point. Yeah, okay, that's fair enough. He ordered more. He's painted none. Okay, dear. So not going well then, James. Never mind. Toros says he thinks skirmish games are shit.
If he's getting himself a grey backlog, he's getting there.
Dear. Well done. Do you know what, Toros? I salute your honesty and you're fucking entitled to your opinion, sir. Good for you. We all know what we like and we like what we know.
I like it.
I'm interested. Shakos's comment is a good one. I wonder if there's a video topic in that. He was saying about he's got people at the club play with these big 6x4 tables. They look 15mm miniatures, look beautiful, but ultimately the game ends up boiling down to just a 1 12-inch square, and that the rest of it's irrelevant bollocks.
I tell you,
is that a flaw of the rule set?
I was going to say, I think
James.
It's possibly a rule set flaw, because flames, in my experience, yes, there's typically 2 or 3 objectives.
That's me screwed.
But the other thing, because there's 2 or 3 objectives, yes, it does end up focusing down into those particular locations longer term. But when you're doing your initial probing and you're trying to open a flank up to get in there, actually you're using the entire table, you're using all of the terrain to manipulate it and cut the angle to then break through to get to where you need to. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Because it's what you're sort of saying is that you might, which in effect,
it ends up focused there later game when it comes to scoring, but in the initial sort of 3-4 turns before scoring happens in 6, you are,
unless the game is a runaway victory for someone else. If it's a tight game, we've played loads of games, mate, where it's been decided on literally like the last dice roll of the last turn, hasn't it? And you could be devil's advocate and say, well, the rest of the game is irrelevant. That was the only bit that mattered, which is sort of true, but not.
That final dice roll was the only one that counted.
But I wonder if James is talking about that, or whether James is just sort of saying, well, basically there is just this one area of the table where all the interesting shit's happening and everything else is actually irrelevant.
It's interesting. I think
I
it
don't
would
think it's
be.
happened enough. I don't think it's happened a lot to us, has it?
I think we'd need. I think I'd like to look at it statistically.
I don't. I'm trying to think of games where we've played it and we've looked at it and said, well, that was fucking annoying because, you know, this was the only
Initially,
thing.
Armada with the terrain before we knew what we were doing with it.
That's
But
true.
we'll draw that out because
That
it was
was,
when we were learning.
yeah, that is possibly true because everything kept getting stuck out of the way behind the terrain, and it
The
meant that
first,
only
the
a
first,
couple of
the
ships.
first, the first Flames game that we played on 4 foot, thinking, "Oh, this will be fine." No, it wasn't because we didn't have enough room to maneuver. Everything got bottlenecked because it was at 4 foot.
Yeah. But like you say, a lot of that was down to us and not knowing how to use terrain effectively for that game, wasn't it?
Yeah, and this is sort of where I think I am. I can't. And again, like Infinity, when we've had bad Infinity games, it's been because of the terrain. It's not been
No. Yeah, I agree.
only focused in one area. It's
Yeah.
been because we fucked up and left a 12 or 14-inch fire lane that somebody manipulated and exploited.
Or created a massive discrepancy where somebody had much a stronger terrain advantage in one corner, for example.
Yeah.
Yeah. Shakos says it's a bit of both. It depends. Sometimes it just ends up with every figure all in the same area and never going beyond. Sometimes it all focuses on one spot.
I tell you a game that does probably focus on areas, and I know we're going way off topic here and possibly ruining a future stream topic. Frostgrave.
Because of the scenarios.
Because of the scenarios.
Yeah, that is true. Sometimes when they're focused around a particular terrain piece, you can get that, can't you?
Or again, just when the giant worm pops up, you know it's random and it's going to be somewhere on the board, but the second it apparates,
yeah, everything revolves around that. Yeah. That's a fair point. That is a fair point. And
but
that's
possibly.
Although to be fair, again,
the future.
Yeah, I mean, again though, that's scenario driven largely in Frostgrave, isn't it? So at its heart, the game doesn't have that flaw, but sometimes the scenarios can bring that out. Yes, Shark, I see everything you're saying there, sir. Burma and the whole fucking campaign there against the Japanese with the Brits and the Gurkhas. Yeah, that's definitely. I mean, the problem with bolt action is but World War II is such a massive topic.
You end up down a huge rabbit hole.
I'm happy with where I've started, and I'm just gonna keep branching out. I mean, one of the great things about the Empire in Flames book, the Japanese source book, that was the first one out, is it's got all of the lists for building Chinese armies for the Sino-Japanese War, 1938, 1937. So, I mean, I'm tempted to build myself a Chinese army, 1937 style, just to give myself options of games, because I think that would be cool as all hell.
But anyway,
see, Toros, the historical nerd there, sort of like in real life, plenty of battles end up with all the troops being dragged into a small part of the battlefield. Gettysburg, for
but
example.
again, you only have to look at like the current Ukraine war. Yes, it's descended into trench war. It's descended into trench warfare, but again, it's been focused heavily on the outskirts of cities and particular operations. It's just part and parcel of warfare. It's mirroring life.
Yeah, that's the way it goes sometimes, I guess.
So it's 5 past. Let's not dabble on too long.
No,
we've gone off piece.
We have, but I think we've covered our topic. First of all, thank you for being with us for the last couple of hours. We hope you enjoyed the last 2 hours. If, as I said earlier, in terms of the topic, get in the comments below. What are the things that you think that large-scale war games, and by large scale we mean lots of miniatures, big armies, what kind of things do they uniquely have that the trend of the current wargaming market to go small scale are going to lose? We are at risk of losing those things. And the reason I think this is an important conversation is, if we carry on with this trend, we're going to have a whole generation of wargamers, younger guys coming up, who will genuinely not know about these things, you know. So I think, get in the comments. Let's thank everybody in the chat. Absolutely.
Just before you thank people,
go on then.
Can I just do another call to action?
Oh, go on.
If people have ideas for stream topics, etc., in a similar vein, Paul's obviously got his DMs and the emails open for Painting Comp.
Yes.
If you're watching this later on Catch Up, etc., please hit up the Discord or the email.
Yep.
And we'll have a look at it, etc. Because again, we would like to get you guys more involved with the show, more involved with some of the ideas that we have.
The other thing that's fair to say, David and I have now been doing this for over 2 years, and there comes a point where even the two of us struggle to come up with new ideas. So, if you have an idea for a topic that you want us to discuss, DM me on Discord on the OTT server, email the email address in the description below, or put it in the comments under a YouTube video, any one of our YouTube videos. I'll see it and we'll probably look at it as a future topic. Thank you very much to everybody in the chat. As much stars of the show as we are, you guys make doing these 2-hour things effortless and so much fun. If you're watching later on YouTube, huge thanks to you as well. All we ask is just click the like button on your way through to watching the video. It's a small thing to you, but it's a massive thing to us. It's free and it pushes us. It pushes a 2-hour waffle in the YouTube algorithm, which we need all the help with we can get. If you can do any of the other shit that's listed underneath, share, comment, subscribe, that's fucking amazing. Do whatever is of value to you. I don't ever nag for subscribers and that sort of thing. You've got to use YouTube the way you want to use YouTube. It's your platform as much as ours, and I'm not going to bully you into doing anything that doesn't help you use YouTube well. But please click the like button if you can. We are off. So until next week, see you later.
Ciao.
It's another Thursday night. I see Crispin's wearing tights. Sparrow's getting in the bath. Young David's full of wrath. Paula's tightening his straps. Where on his apron you saps. Technical difficulties. They're really such a crime. Technical difficulties. They happen all the time. It's Yellow Belly Tabletop 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 time. Cheese Meat is on day release. Dan Silk tries not to crease. And Ewoks keeping nice and warm. In bed with Russian uniform. Meanwhile, the handyman is opening up the can. Technical difficulties. They're really such a crime. Technical difficulties. Ketchup tries not to crease, but Ewok's keeping nice and warm in bed with Russian uniform. Meanwhile, the handyman is opening another can. It's Yellow Belly Tabletop time. 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 Cheese is on day release. Damn me up tries not to crease, and Ewok's keeping nice and warm in bed with Russian uniform. Meanwhile, the handyman is opening another can.